Okay, welcome. Frank Casale here with the Outsourcing Institute, and I'm joined here today with John Willmott. John is CEO and, in essence, heads NelsonHall, a leading analyst and advisory firm focusing primarily in the BPO space. John, thank you for taking the time to join us here today.
My pleasure.
So, I wanted to talk about your latest research report, and I have an excerpt of it here right in front of me, John. And I know you've done this for many years. Global BPO Market Forecast, 2014 and 2018. How many years have you done this research?
Oh, at least 10. This is at least the 10th iteration of it.
Okay, and so we have all of about 9 or 10 minutes, so I'll see what we can squeeze in here. But let's start out with just getting a sense of the areas that you are tracking. So BPO, unlike ITO, is kind of a fairly wide and some would say a loosely defined area. So what, in essence, were your objectives as far as what you wanted to track here?
Well, believe it or not, having done it for 10 years, we extend the areas we track every year. So we've now got, I think it's something like 67 flavours of BPO buried within that report. So what we've done this year is we've tried to break out a bunch more of the industry-specific areas. So things like pharma, we'd never had it split out as a separate line for things like clinical data management, pharmacovigilance. So a whole bunch of that stuff that we've extended this year. We've also gone a bit more granular in terms of geography than we have in the past. So, it grows.
Okay, so let's talk about growth and let's talk about geographies, John. So what I hear is that BPO is growing. It seems to be, at least if I get a sense of the activity within our membership network. Is that indeed the case? And let's talk about it from a geographic standpoint initially. Where's the growth? And maybe is there any lack of growth, depending on if you're talking U.S., Europe, Asia, et cetera?
Yes, I mean there are clearly differences between those markets. I think if you start with the US, I mean BPO is pretty mature. Okay, there are still areas that are newer, like healthcare has been a favourite for the last year or two in terms of providing some new impetus. But a lot of the other areas, you go back to Medicaid side of that, then that's been going for many decades and so on. So there are quite a lot of areas now that are quite mature. What we're tending to see in the US is it's becoming rather more about farming than it is about winning new business. So, there are deals in most of the big organizations in the US. As people start to move to global business services, it becomes more about competing within the portfolio. So, from the vendor perspective, it's showing that you can do an area well, showing that you can then add value, you've got a view on the wider supply chain. The vendors are much more mature now in terms of their process models and knowing what the end process should look like. So there's a bit of portfolio fighting going on there and
Okay.
continual extension. If we go to Europe, again, UK, fairly mature, but always a firm favourite for doing BPO. However, you switch to continental Europe, then that's providing a more steady stream of new business, particularly in back office areas. A bit reluctant sometimes in the middle office, but certainly always been front office activity there. There's an increasing amount around the sort of F&A outsourcing and HR and areas like that in continental Europe.
John, if I may, you also break the kind of the world of BPO into front office, middle office, and back office. And so maybe we could talk about that for a little bit. What could you talk to based on your findings in this most recent report with regard to front office? Any nuggets there worth talking about?
Okay, yes, I guess it's a tale of two halves. I think on the document management side, we're seeing a decline in growth, and we've marked that down a bit as people try to get out of all the paper-based processes and go much more digital. On the other side, on the customer management services, which is again the contact center business, very mature BPO business, we're giving that a bit of an uptick because this whole move to digital customer experience, online businesses, suddenly it's become much more about revenue generation and holding customers, and less about just what's the cheapest way of doing it. And also there's a bit of lack of expertise, often in the buy side when they look to move into that online environment. It's, if you're a retailer, I'm great with the shops. Oops, what's this online business all about? I often need a bit more help.
So I'm curious, John, within your world, you're working with both the buy side and the sell side. And if I was to talk about just the sell side for a moment, do you sense either from this research or just previous years of interaction with the sell side, what's really differentiating the winners from those that are struggling on the BPO side from a vendor perspective? What differentiates the market leaders?
Okay, I mean, it varies by area in BPO. So clearly, in the contact center world is very different from the F&A outsourcing world. If I take something that's pretty well developed, like the F&A side, then it really is having those process models is there, coming through with the automation, and that's been there for a few years. There are all the point solutions for all the different F&A silos, whether it's P2P, O2C, R2R. Increasingly, we are seeing people needing to put the robotics process automation into there to stay competitive and protect the business. That seems to be leading to, it's moving some of the pricing along a little bit as well, because the pricing has always been FTE, because most people, an awful lot of it has been FTE, because everyone has said, well, actually, I don't really believe what these transaction costs. I don't really understand this cost base. But actually, if you're going to start to drive down the costs within some of those areas, the vendors need to protect their revenue streams a little bit, and the way they're doing that is much faster adoption of transaction-based pricing and more outcome-based pricing in there for sharing the benefits of actually moving the process on a bit faster than might otherwise have been the case.
And how about from the buy side, John? Are clients buying and managing BPO differently now than they were a decade ago?
Yeah, I think there's some really big differences on the governance side. I mean, firstly, there is the global business services which is coming through, certainly in a proportion of the big firms. That really makes you look at processes end to end, manage hybrid models. That has quite a big impact on the expertise that vendors need for farming within those accounts. So I think that's quite a big change in governance. The other is, and it's been true for a while, there's all been two ways of losing a BPO contract. One, mess it up on transition and not really know what you're doing at all. That's a fairly drastic way of losing it. The other way was to bore the client to death and then think, well, what have you done for me? Where's my transformation? So that transformation agenda is much more firmly with the buy side these days than it ever has been.
How about analytics, John? Where you hear more and more about analytics being a key factor in either how the service providers may be differentiating their offerings and/or what the buyers are looking for. And again, I'm sure that differentiates by vertical industry as well. But do you see analytics playing more and more of a role these days?
Yes, it is. And it's really got two roles. So it's sort of how you separate the two. One is really the process analytics. So analytics has got quite a big role to tell you in terms of what's working within your process, what isn't, how your process can be improved. And I think, we're starting to see much more, sort of real-time monitoring coming through in those sorts of areas. The other side, and maybe this sometimes plays better on things that are real money connected. So, on the collections side or in the front office where you're looking for sales. And then that's really all the, if you like, the business insight, the customer insight. So an awful lot of that really at the front end of the business in terms of, all the, I guess, the social media analytics and all the multi-channel analytics and trying to work out what the customer journey looks like. quite how you map that journey to keep the guys and sell more to them.
John, final question before we wrap up. It has to do with vendor selection. What is your sense, or what does your research tell us as to what buyers look for when they determine who the right BPO partner is for them? I mean, we all know price is important, right?
Yeah.
And regardless what anyone says, we know that that will always continue to play a role. But the sense I'm getting, John, is price is now table stakes, so you have to have a good price. Plus, there has to be one or two other really good things that you bring to the table. Are you seeing that, and what are those things?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to. I think the other table stakes is you've got to be a safe pair of hands.
Right.
Buyers are still pretty concerned. Can these guys do the transition? Will I get through that first 6 months or that first year in one piece? So that can be seen as a bit obvious, but don't underestimate
A
that
good
one.
point.
That's important. Um, After that, it really does come then down to that, supporting their business vision, that transformation. Can you show them that you're going to take them to a place they want to be? Everyone, again, if it's that front office piece, and sorry, we've neglected the industry specific a little bit in the middle office, but in the front office, I want to be the best online retailer is. I want to be best at using proactive web chat mixed into my customer journey in there. I want someone who's going to take me to that place. If it's F&A, I want process excellence at a, and process excellence there does go with a price point that I can only dream about. Yeah, and the in industry specific, I guess combinations of the same thing. A lot of it is still standardization and process excellence. There's still a lot of BPO, which is, the table stakes are take cost out, make this process more standard, allow me to see my business data in 1 minute rather than 2 weeks, and all these sorts of things.
Great, John. Thank you. John Willmott, NelsonHall. John, if someone wants to learn more about this report or actually buy this report, how do they find you? Where do they go on the internet?
Okay, they go to research.nelson, Nelson hyphen hall, HALL.com.
Great, John Willmott. Thank you again. I appreciate you taking your time with us here today.
You're welcome.